Oh, hello there. Welcome back to another monthly recap. Today is my recap of the month March, and by the way, I hope you all survived the Oscars. Some people are saying it's staged. If it was, then Chris Rock had a better performance there than in Spiral. Anyways, I started this month by watching Spawn. This was the first time for me seeing it. I didn't know a whole lot about it, but thought it was a really cheesy 90s comic book movie with some more violence going on, but then again, not too much either. Overall, it was pretty forgettable. It's definitely not my type of movie, as some of the effects didn't age all too well. I had a good time with it, but I wouldn't rewatch it too much, so I gave it 3 stars. Then I watched The Others. Now, besides a bit of a slow pacing, I do think it really paid off. Spoiler alert, I didn't know about the twist at the end. I didn't even know there was a twist at the end, so I wasn't waiting the whole movie like, oh, what's the twist gonna be? I want to know what the twist is. No, I didn't know shit. I didn't know anything. And then that twist came and I was like, what the fuck? It wasn't the most surprising twist ever, but it was a really cool twist regardless. And I thought the way it was done was really well done and smartly done. I'm gonna give this one 3.5 stars. Then I watched Dog Soldiers. Now I gotta admit, this is one of those movies where I thought I was gonna like this a lot more than I ended up doing. I thought it was a bit slow and it didn't really pay off too much. It seems like the perfect movie for me. It seems like I would love this film, but overall it kind of fell flat for me and it didn't keep me interested that long at all. So I'm gonna sadly have to give this one 3 stars. And then another first time watch, I'm on a fucking roll here, Strangeland. This was awesome. I really like this film. It's written by Dee Snider, obviously most well known as frontman for Twisted Sisters. It had this early 2000s metal Freddy vs. Jason vibe, you know? And I really dig that. It was like this thing that came out when the internet was just around. There were some really nasty effects and like imagery that really grossed me out. Like people's mouth sewed shut and piercings and that kind of shit. I'm grossed out by that sort of stuff. I guess in that case the movie did its job, and I wish there was a Strangeland 2, and who knows, maybe one day, but for now we just have this one and I'm gonna give it 4 stars. Then it was my first time watch of The Exorcism of Emily Rose. I thought it had some really amazing performances. It was great seeing Jennifer Carpenter outside of Dexter. I liked how the story was told, like it was told from this lawsuit and then went back to the exorcisms. Then again, the pacing did have some issues at times, and sometimes it was kind of dragging maybe a little bit. I'll definitely give this one another watch someday, so 3.5 stars. Then I watched Alligator, also for the first time, and I have had this movie for so long, but never watched it. I finally did. I really like how it was an alligator being flushed in the toilet and then coming back later for revenge in the sewer. It's pretty amazing. The effects were really awesome. Some of the characters were really likable, and there were some awesome set pieces. Overall, it's all I want from an early 80s, late 70s creature feature flick. So I'm gonna give this one 3.5 stars. Then I watched Below. I also bought this one on DVD a while back, and I don't know, like at first it seemed like more of a horror abyss, like The Abyss, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. And I was interested to see where it went, but halfway through they kind of lost me because it didn't really go anywhere or do anything. It kind of just fell flat on its ass deep down below in the ocean. That was so stupid, but I'm gonna give this one 3 stars. Cat People, the remake from 1982. I had never seen this one ever. I knew about this because when I was younger, I was a huge novelization fan, and I knew there was a novelization for this film, but I didn't know it was a remake. But I got it on DVD, so I checked it out for the first time, and I really dug it. I thought it was a fun movie, and I should have rolled a joint for this one because it was trippy as hell. Seriously though, this was awesome. Like visually it was really great, and there were some awesome performances. It was erotic, trippy, and had this awesome synth soundtrack and a score by David Bowie. What else do you need? 4 stars, baby. And then the first rewatch of the month, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003. Now, having said in the past that I thought this movie was slow at times, that was pretty much the only flaw I had with this film. I rewatched it and I thought the pacing issues weren't there at all anymore. This was by far the best rewatch ever. I think it's a horror masterpiece and one of the best remakes ever made. So I'm gonna give it 4.5 stars. A couple months ago, I watched John Carpenter's Vampires for the first time, and naturally, since I have Vampires 2 on DVD, I also had to check out that one, Vampires Los Muertos. Now this stars John Bon Jovi. What the fuck? And it's one of the most fun experiences I've ever had, and I do not get the hate for this film. I love how this movie is directed by Tommy Lee Wallace, who obviously also took over John Carpenter's directing chair with Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. So I thought that was really great to see that happen again. It had a great vibe and does a really good job at kind of copying the atmosphere and aesthetic and the world from the first Vampires. And had some great effects. I mean, like, what's there to say to it? It's Vampires 2, 4 stars. Then Vampires The Turning. Now this was bad. This was a bad movie. This just completely fell flat and wasted all of the potential because there are like samurai vampires, and that's the coolest shit ever, man. Come on, why didn't you do anything cooler with it than this? The writing is awful. The acting is awful. Don't even get me started on the effects. Like, it's horrible. So yeah, I really didn't like this one. I gotta give it 2 stars. Then I watched The Howling for the first time, and I gotta say I was pretty disappointed. I was hoping to really like this film. I know a lot of people in the horror community like this one. It just kind of fell flat for me, and I also thought the pacing really had some issues and was pretty slow for me. But besides some really good effects and an amazing final act, it just takes so long before you actually get there and see some actual wolf action, you know? I can only really give it 3 stars. Then The Lost Boys. Now, this did not fall flat at all. This was so much fun. Believe it or not, a first time watch for me. Yep, I love the characters, I love the whole story, the music, the effects. I love everything about this film. This was awesome. Now, it's not as memorable as some of my favorite movies from the 80s, but I had so much fun with this film. And yeah, you bet your ass I'm gonna rewatch this one quite a few times in the future. So 4 stars. Now, don't get mad at me, but I watched 7 for the first time ever. I had never seen this film before, and I must say, I really loved it, but the ending was definitely ruined for me. I didn't know what the twist was, but I already knew that at the end there was like a box. Everyone's always talking about, what's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box? And as this scene was going on, before they revealed that it's the wife's head, I was like, okay, this is one of the most talked about endings ever. What could be in it? Is it a bomb? No, because that would be lame. Is it something special to one of the main characters? Probably. What's something special for these characters that has been developed in this movie? Nothing, except his wife. And I was like, okay, so it's probably her head. And yeah, it was. I'm not gonna blame people for spoiling it, because maybe someone watching right now, I just spoiled it for you. You should know by now that all my recap videos are not spoiler free, alright? It's definitely a slow burn, but it's a slow burn that pays the fuck off, especially if you did not know that ending. But for me, that was kind of ruined. 4 stars though. Then I rewatched Saw 5, mostly just because I got this really cool Fangoria magazine, and I wanted to read about it, about the making of the film, you know? So I was like, yeah, you know, I'm in the mood now to watch Saw 5 again. I always thought this was one of the lamer sequels, but this time I found myself enjoying it a lot more, and I think that's also because I watched it separately. I only watched this once when I had just seen Saw 3, 4, and then afterwards 6 and 7, obviously. With all those flashbacks and all that shit, like, you kind of tend to get everything mixed up, so it was good to watch this one separately from all the other movies, and because of that, I enjoyed it a lot more and thought some of the traps were awesome. I thought the storyline in this film was really good. I was pleasantly surprised, and I'm gonna give this one 4 stars. Then I rewatched The Dentist, which, by the way, I interviewed the director Brian Usna, so if you're interested in that, the link is right over there. And this is such an awesome, fun watch. Like, what the fuck is Mark Ruffalo doing in this film? It's pretty damn awesome, so I'm gonna give it 4 stars. And then another first time watch, American Psycho. That's right. And since I watched it for the first time, now I'm gonna base my whole existence on Patrick Bateman, because I'm such a fucking tool. I am so happy I finally checked this one out. This film is so damn good. Patrick Bateman's character is freaking awesome. If you haven't seen this one yet, go and watch it. You will not regret it. I'm gonna give this one 4.5 stars. And naturally, I also watched American Psycho 2. American Psycho visits Hannah Montana. This was horrible. The fact that Patrick Bateman gets killed by a what? 6-year-old in the first 5 minutes is so fucking disrespectful to the original. Honestly, I should be mad, but I mean, that's the funniest shit ever. What were they thinking? But at some scenes, I gotta admit, I was actually having fun, and it was actually kind of entertaining, but in the worst way imaginable. So I'm still gonna give it 2.5 stars. Now, if you've seen my most recent vlog, you know that I hung out with Connor for a weekend, aka Dutch Horror, and we had a movie marathon, and the first one we watched was my all-time favorite movie, Intruder. Now, I won't go on about this movie for too long, again, because I talk about this movie all the time on my channel. And by the way, if you're new here, make sure you subscribe and maybe like to let YouTube know you enjoy this video and send it out to more people. I really appreciate it. But this movie is everything I want from a slasher. It came out in 1989. It's like the whole 80s had been building up to Intruder. Intruder is the final 80s slasher that really sends it all off on the highest note possible. Like, it got everything you want. You got a great scream queen, you have a great killer, you have amazing special effects and kills, you have really funny and awesome cinematography and camera work, like really original stuff. And I could go on forever, but you all know what I give this movie. 5 stars. And then we watched the Blob remake. Now, this is my second favorite movie of all time, so that was the greatest double feature of my life. It features Shawnee Smith, who we obviously all know from the Saw movies, but this features her in a young role. And I also think Brian Flagg is one of the most badass characters ever. These special effects are amazing. Like, the first time I watched this a couple years ago, I was completely grossed out. I was just getting into horror, and this shit really just shocked me. And I can throw this one in any time, much like Intruder. So also 5 stars, no surprise there, huh? Then I rewatched Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning. I love that they did this. Like, just think about it. Would they do this nowadays? I'm not so sure, honestly. Like, maybe they would, but I just think it's really cool that it happened. It works really well, especially as a double feature with the remake itself. It matches the first one really well, just in color tone and landscapes, and obviously they have the same locations, the same actors. So much like the remake, I'm gonna give this one 4.5 stars. Then it was my first time watching Mirrors. Now, I thought this was decent. There was some questionable acting and writing at times, some really cool kills that were sometimes kind of ruined by dated CGI, but I kind of let it fly. And the twist at the end is a bit predictable, but still cool. It doesn't come too much as a shock. You're not like, oh my god, he's in the mirror dimension. You're more like, huh, that just happened. That's pretty cool. I love the way it's done though. Like, you see the name tag of this officer and it's mirrored. I think that was really cool. Then I rewatched Kill Bill, and honestly, I don't have too much to say about it because, like, what can I say that hasn't already been said? This is awesome. If you're a horror fan, I think you'll enjoy this one too, because there's obviously a lot of violence and gore in it. There's some really great gore. There's an eyeball scene, and then, like, it goes black and white, and it's fucking insane. I love it. It's gross as fuck, man. Like, eyes, I can't stand shit with eyes. It's so gross to me. Like, I don't know. Eyes are fucking scary, let's just say that. But this was awesome to rewatch, and I'm definitely giving this one 4 stars. Then I watched Kill Bill 2 for the first time. I hadn't seen this one. I saw the first one years ago, but now I finally watched Kill Bill 2, and I thought this was on par with the original. I think they're both really well-made films, and I just overall think Kill Bill 2 holds up the quality of the first one really nicely, and is a very satisfying ending to the double feature. I'm gonna give Kill Bill Volume 2 4 stars as well. Then I finally rewatched Fright Night. It had been far too long since I watched this one, and rewatching it was such a joy. I am so happy I finally rewatched this one again. It's one of my all-time favorites. I love the 80s vibe and music and some of the erotic vibes going on, and Fright Night is definitely the best vampire movie ever made. Like, no cap. This is probably in my top 5 movies of all time, so you can see this coming. I'm sorry to be so predictable, but 5 stars. And a heart, of course. Then I rewatched the Evil Dead remake. It had been really long since I saw this one too, and I felt like it was definitely due for a rewatch, and I liked it decently. I was hoping I would like it more than I did last time, but I didn't really. I do like it, don't get me wrong. There are some really gross scenes, and it's bloody as hell, and I love that. But to me, it's just kind of bland and like a normal cabin movie, and it doesn't bring too much new to the cabin horror movie game, in my opinion, you know? At the end, when it's raining blood, that shit is badass though. So I'm gonna give this one 3.5 stars. Then I rewatched The Game. Again, this was one I watched a long time ago and felt like it was due for a rewatch. And controversial opinion alert, I prefer The Game over Seven. Yep, I'm sorry. You know what? I'm not sorry. That's my opinion, and I stand by that shit, alright? Overall, I think the game aged better than 7. I feel like the game is a much more original story, even nowadays. 7 has been, you know, kind of copied and had been done before in different ways, and I love 7, don't get me wrong. I mean, I gave it 4 stars, but the game, there's no movie similar like the game, I think, at least. And that plot twist at the end shocked me much more than the plot twist of 7. I think the plot twist in the game is one of the most unpredictable twists ever, and I friggin' love it. I think it's awesome. Maybe there's also a bit of nostalgia for me because my dad showed this to me when I was really young, and because of that, obviously I have a soft spot for this movie in my heart. But rewatching it, it held up really well for me. So yeah, I'm gonna give this one 4 stars. I also watched Starship Troopers. I had to watch this one for school. I had to do a film analysis about this film. This was very similar to Total Recall and RoboCop, which I'd already seen. It's definitely one of those Paul Verhoeven sci-fi films that is not as family friendly and lighthearted as, say, Star Wars, the holiday special, but it's more gory and violent, and I love that. And I love the underlying message of this film that this film tries to give, and I'm sure if you watch it, you'll know what I'm talking about, so I'm definitely gonna give this one 3.5 stars. And then I watched The Exorcist 3. Oh boy, did I not like this film. This was one of the most slow, boring movies I've ever seen. This movie dragged for so freaking long and barely anything happens, and then at the end there's a really cool effect with like exorcism and shit, and it's just thrown in there because they were like, wait, hold on, this movie is called The Exorcist 3, shouldn't we have an exorcism? You know, and it's so stupid, you know, and at that point I don't know what to say about this film, honestly. It's sad, honestly. I really wanted to like this film. I know it has its fans. It's better than The Exorcist 2: The Heretic, because at least I can see what they were trying to do, but that isn't saying much at all. This was definitely a month of rewatching some of my all-time favorites, because I also rewatched The Hitcher. This is a masterpiece, and I love that this movie is also trying to give like a message and maybe mysterious a bit. After this movie, you can wonder, is the Hitcher maybe like an entity from hell? The boogeyman? Like a fallen angel? You know, you can really philosophize about that, because there are certain things that kind of hint at it being supernatural, which I find really, really cool. Overall, all the situation that Jim Halsey finds himself in are really cool and extremely memorable. This movie keeps you on the edge of your seat. It's super thrilling and exciting, and you can't take your eyes off of it. So I'm gonna give this one 5 stars and obviously a heart. Then I watched the sequel, The Hitcher 2, I've Been Waiting. Now, even though this is nowhere near as good as the original, I cannot help but have fun with this film. Like, so much fun. They kind of hint at the new Hitcher being the same one, and it's hinted that this is the entity in another human being. I don't buy any of that crap. Just have fun with this movie. It's a B movie. It's a lot of fun though. Like, seriously, I have so much fun with this film. And now we have this badass final girl in Carrie Wooer versus the Hitcher. And obviously Carrie comes from the Hellraiser Deader success. Or not really success. I think the atmosphere is really, really nice. Like, this is just much like the first one. That makes me feel extremely cozy and just want to sit back and enjoy the ride. No pun intended there. So I'm gonna give this one 4 stars. Then Demonic Toys. I hadn't seen this one before, and I had so much fun with it. This was amazing. This was another one of those movies where I was like, I wish I had seen this earlier. I don't really like all full moons films, like Killjoy. I think that one just doesn't have a charm or something. I don't know what's missing about that film versus like Demonic Toys, because they're both bad movies you can have a lot of fun with, but for some reason this one has this like charm, you know, that Killjoy to me doesn't really have. I thought some of the effects were really, really good, especially for such a low budget. I didn't care too much for the whole aspect of the kid and like that kind of storyline. That kind of has to grow on me, I guess. For now, I'm gonna give it 3.5 stars. And then another rewatch that was a long time coming, Batman. Not the Batman, Batman 1989, because I haven't seen the new Batman yet. Go fucking sue me. But this Batman, it's fucking awesome. Like, I realized this time watching it, there are so many horror elements in it, and this movie might be one of the reasons I like horror nowadays. And let me tell you, Jack Nicholson is still the best Joker. So if you prefer Heath Ledger and you're mad at me, ooh. Oh, I got a live one here.
I'm glad you did.
In all seriousness, I freaking love this Joker. Just look at me being 9 years old, cosplaying as Jack Nicholson's Joker. Aww. Come on, man. I've always loved Jack Nicholson. And to me, he will always be my favorite Joker. And then the final movie I watched, we ended on a high note. Batman Returns. Now, much like the first one, there are so many horror elements in this. And this one I hadn't seen since I was like really young. And I loved the Penguin and some of the things he does were like, what the fuck? How did I manage this as a kid, you know? And Catwoman, little Roger fell in love with her. Like my fucking mouth was drooling whenever she was on screen, man. Let's not get into that. I gotta tell you, Batman Returns, 4 stars. What are some of your favorite movies that you checked out this month or rewatched this month? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys next time. See ya.